So the U.S. government recently came out with revisions to its job numbers that are published annually, and they seem like kind of a big deal because 818,000 jobs were taken off of the numbers that we thought were added, almost a million jobs in the past year. And so we wanted to get into the ramifications of that, how the process works. Do you want to go into how that process works?
Yeah, so that 800,000 number is about 0.5% of total jobs, okay? So it's 0.5% less jobs than we thought we had across the country.
So not jobs added,
Right.
total jobs that we have.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
0.5% is a lot. And it's actually, this is the largest revision since 2009.
Wow.
So this is like an abnormality. Now, what I've learned, because we always ask this question when we see the revisions come out, why do revisions happen? What is causing these to happen? Well, I dug deep and I found out. So on the month-by-month basis, when you get these job reports, it's done by a big survey nationwide of 140,000 companies across the U.S.
crazy.
And every 2 weeks, they do this. And so there's a two-week survey period where they gather all this information. And so when you get the initial numbers of the job reports, it's that initial survey result. When the revisions happen, on the month basis, you get late respondents to the survey. And those late respondents are most likely to be businesses in trouble, businesses that are going through layoffs, and that's when job numbers most likely come down during revisions. Okay? Then I learned this part, which is also important. The yearly revision is vastly different from monthly revisions. Why? It measures employment through two totally different metrics. So when we're talking about this survey, all that's happening is the Bureau of Labor Statistics is calling somebody up and they're like, how many jobs do you have? Oh, this is 2 more than you had last month. Check off 2 jobs.
Yep.
What happens at the end of the year is all of the unemployment insurance information from all the states comes in. And it all gets reported back to the federal government. And then the federal government then estimates employment through the unemployment insurance claims.
Yep.
And that is a more accurate measure of employment. And so that's why we saw this 800,000 decrease. Another thing I've learned is years that have either big upswings in employment or big downswings in employment are more likely to suffer from year-end revisions. So in the year 2009, we saw a ton of job loss because of the Great Recession. That's why we saw big revisions, because it's hard to capture that much movement.
Sure.
2019, under the Trump administration, a huge year for job creation, saw 500,000 jobs get revised down.
Yeah.
2022, massive job growth. We saw 400,000 jobs get revised up in that year.
So why do you think we're seeing such a big revision this year? Because my perception of what we've seen with employment this year doesn't fit that idea.
So the other avenue for it is the unemployment insurance claims are better at capturing businesses that might be going under completely. And because when you're only capturing employment numbers from calling the business, if they're out of business, they're not picking up. And that means they're going into your system as a non-respondent, not as a everyone got fired, business doesn't exist anymore.
So you think there might be a substantial number of business closures that have happened that we haven't seen.
That is what this data and their methodology is suggesting to me.
Interesting.
Which tells me we have a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah.
800,000 jobs is a lot to think that you have and then not actually have. That's a huge problem. Now, luckily, the market didn't react very harshly.
Yeah, that was a really interesting factor of this.
Yes. The market did not really care about this. They were like, okay, jobs grew. They didn't grow that much, but they grew, right?
Yeah.
The average monthly job growth under the previous estimation before the revision was about 240,000 jobs a month. After this revision, it's about 170,000 jobs a month.
Yeah.
Which is still great job growth. 170,000 jobs a month is good job growth. That's what you would expect. So I guess the market was saying, okay, economy wasn't as good as we thought, still good. Not going to do mass sell-offs of our positions.
I mean, but on the other side, you can think, oh, this is even better evidence for a cut.
Yes.
and for a bigger rate cut.
Right.
If
And so
anything,
he's talking about the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we already expect a rate cut to come in September. We've thought that maybe it could be a 0.5 point rate cut rather than a 1/4 point rate cut. 1/4 point is kind of the standard. It's the lowest amount that you would expect the Fed to cut the interest rate. And of course, the Federal Reserve interest rate is the main mechanism of how the government controls supply or demand specifically in the economy.
Right.
A higher interest rate means that the cost of money is higher. A lower interest rate, once we cut it, means the cost of money is lower. So to me, like I'm imagining, at least from the market's perspective, they look at this and they're like, well, we already know what all of the earnings numbers
Right.
for the companies that we care about have been. Those aren't going to go back and be revised. We don't really care if those companies have been expanding or contracting their employee base as long as
Right.
they've been making more money. So for us as an investor, this just means it's more likely that money's about to get cheaper.
I agree. And also, I think it's actually a good sign for the American economy that we're still this strong with these high interest rates. I think that's actually pretty badass. The fact that we're in this higher interest rate environment and we're still chugging along like this, making 170,000 jobs a month, that means like our fundamentals are very strong.
Well, are you worried? Because the last jobs report we had, the July jobs report, came out and we saw a jump in unemployment up to 4.3%. That was more than economists expected.
Yeah, it was expected to be 4.1 at that point.
Are you worried that this means that our real unemployment rate is even higher than that?
Well,
is it possible this is indicating that we are inching closer to a recession and won't actually get the soft landing we're looking for?
So the unemployment number, that 4.3% number, is using different data to estimate unemployment than the jobs created metric. So the unemployment number isn't getting calculated through a survey the same way that the jobs created does. Okay. So that unemployment month on month level is actually pretty stable.
So that's because that's getting calculated, I assume, still from the monthly unemployment claims
Yes.
at the state level.
Yes.
That data is being taken in, which is the same way that these jobs created numbers are getting revised too.
So what's actually happening is the job creation numbers are being matched to the unemployment number that's going in every month. Why the Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't do this every month, I can't tell you. I don't work there. I didn't make up the process. Okay. But I imagine that there's some type of hurdle with data conglomerating them all together. But
totally.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think the Federal Reserve is definitely going to cut rates in September now.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely time. If anything, it's too late.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I honestly think the September, I mean, it's all going to depend on the September jobs report that we get, or like the August jobs report that will come out in September. But I would lean towards the 0.5 point being more likely than the 1/4 point.
I agree. Apparently, during the Fed minutes of the last meeting, there were actually a lot more people talking about a rate cut than was previously thought.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on their minds. It's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of between 25% or 0.25% and 50.5%.
So we have a Patreon. And since you made it to the end of the episode, that means that maybe you are somewhat interested in the content we make, which, let me say, that's awesome.
That's so cool that you think that we have good takes enough for you to watch our stuff. That means a lot.
Thank you so much. You're probably wrong, but we'll take it. If you want to support the show, and we post exclusive content on there, so if you want to see more of that, see us go deeper onto a few other topics, maybe some of the stuff we post on there is stuff that we think the normies on YouTube might be a little bit less interested in, but the nerds that want to go to Patreon are more interested in. Feel free to check it out. There's going to be a link in the video description. There's a link in the channel description as well.
Perfect.
We would super appreciate it.
Love you guys.